Welcome to Tuesday Night Lights. We're back. We're officially back. Feels great. Feels great to be back with you guys. Hopefully you like the new presentation. This is it. This is Tuesday Night Lights. This is all NFL based. We'll do Sunday night with Titan Upload Live, all Titans based. A lot of stuff in between. I don't know. I got a lot of energy. Anytime I bring this guy on, for some reason, it's just I become a fan. I'm a fan to begin with, but I just become a fan and I'm in awe because I'm like when we had him on last year a few times, but when we did the mock draft, he went he went full first round, pick 1 through 32, and it was a long show. It was a couple hours. And back then, that was one of the longer shows here on Titan Upload. So Brian, I've always kind of shout him out. Anytime the draft stuff comes up, I always mention we got to get Brian on. We got to get Brian on. Brian's doing really well on his own. Works for the Huddle Reports, does writing there, has his own YouTube channel. Obviously, that's where I found him. He's on Twitter as well, so I will get to all his plugs here in a second. But again, Big O Titan in the house. Good to see you. Peyton, Michael, John, Merking, Jamari, Eli in the house. We had Adam. Adam is becoming one of my favorite Titan Upload guys. I appreciate all Adam does. And Seneca. So let's get right into it. The mock draft, you're not getting the full. This is just an appetizer. And if you want the full, you got to go check out Brian's stuff on his YouTube channel. Definitely head right over there as soon as this is going on. Or just do it during the show. And go over there, subscribe, come back, follow him on Twitter. We'll get to all, like I said, all his plugs. I'm super pumped. The Titans. Or any NFL team, it's that season right now. February going into March, a lot of mock drafts. But I take this into account. Why do I take this into account? Before I introduce him, I got to play this. This is from last year. Check this out. Brian, let me play a sound. This is a big deal for us. We'll play the DJ sound. We're ready. Titans were finally here. It only took an hour and 40 minutes. Who are the Titans picking, Brian?
I feel like I'm going to announce this pick and I'm going to duck because people were throwing stuff. I have them taking Georgia offensive tackle Isaiah Wilson.
Oh.
Here's my thought process. And here's the thing. I'm looking at this draft and Trayvon Diggs is still available. And I like Trayvon Diggs. I don't know why I don't have him being picked here. But I think he's going to get – I think he's maybe gone. I think Trayvon Diggs will be –
Here he is. Brian, take it away. Again, go follow him at Twitter, at draft_Brian. YouTube, draft_Brian as well. Also does writing on the Huddle Report. You could definitely look him up. Anybody that knows the NFL draft, it's this guy. So, Brian, welcome. Sorry the Illini were able to beat Nebraska in overtime, but you did get that win against Penn State. But take it away, Brian.
Hey, real quick on that Isaiah Wilson. I projected they took him. I never said he was going to be good. So, Titans fans, don't dislike me for that. I just mock drafts are what I'm hearing, not what I think. So.
Yeah, and I think you did it really, really well. You even on record, I kind of forgot when I went back there. You on record went and you're like, hey, I might take cornerback from Alabama, Diggs, if he's still on the board. I was hoping for, Johnson from Utah. But you brought in Isaiah Wilson because you said that's the type of guy that probably John Robinson was going to go with. And you nailed it. So, you got my attention. You got all these guys' attention as well. But, again, what are you up to, Brian? And I know you got a busy schedule, so thank you for giving up your time because I know time is money, money's time. But yeah. Thanks for being here. But how's the draft process going for you this year compared to other years? Like, real quick before we get into this, you definitely let them know more about you. I already got some comments in the Peyton. He says, hey, where we find Brian's info? I have Brian's info in the description. I'm also going to post it after the show and pin it. But like I said, you can definitely go check him out on YouTube. You don't need to wait for that. Draft_Brian, you'll find him. And but how's things going for you, Brian?
Definitely good. huddlereport.com. That's always the number one spot, I think, for mock drafts. They always have the Huddle mock draft contest. That is the where all the draft people like me go to, and you submit your mock drafts, and you see who has the best one. And they've got a bunch of writers there that have done very well and had very accurate mock drafts. And so I'm excited. This is my first year with them after spending 10 years at NFLDraftGeek.com. And then, so the YouTube channel is kind of all of my full football takes. And then I also do something a little specialized. I work with the Corn Nation, which is the SB Nation site for Nebraska, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And I'm doing draft stuff and NFL talk for Husker stuff there. So that's very specific, but I've actually really enjoyed doing that. So that's something new this year as well.
But you're also on the radio sometimes.
Yeah.
You mentioned that too.
Sometimes. So when people want, ask every once in a while, I know a few people here in my hometown, here in Nebraska that will have me on. So anytime I get to talk NFL and the draft and that, it's going to be hard to turn them down.
Yeah. I mean, you do a really, really good job. And I know we can get into this Isaiah Wilson pick, but I don't want to kind of hostage the whole show about the Titans, even though I'm very interested in what the Titans are going to do and where they're going to go this year. We all know it's pass rusher, but how confident are you? Last year, I know going into this is going to be my early Titans question, and I'll move on to something else, I promise you. But last year, I remember you had Matos early, like the first time we ever met, mid-season. Even when we didn't even know we had a quarterback then with Ryan Tannehill, you were like, we might the guy from LSU, can't think of his name.
Caleb on Chason,
which went to Jacksonville, right?
That 20th pick to Jacksonville.
Yep. So he goes to Jacksonville, but you had Matos, possibly the guy from Penn State. How do you think this is going to go? Like, it seems to me like every mock draft, every draft comes out before pass rushers are kind of down. Everyone's all excited about quarterbacks, obviously. But then as the draft actually takes fold, pass rushers seem to go more towards the top. Are we going to get something similar this year, do you think?
I don't think so. I think this pass rusher class is not as deep. You don't have that number one guy. You don't have that elite pass rusher. There's no Chase Youngs. There's no, Jadeveon Clowney type guys. So I think you're going to have a lot of guys, you have that kind of tier 2. There's no tier 1. There's no elite pass rushers. So I think that's going to push those guys down. Other positions might get up there. And so I think your best pass rushers are probably in that second half of the top of the first round.
So, yeah, and I've been kind of doing a little testing of the waters. There are some guys I'm interested that you have picked if the Titans could trade up for him. I don't know if the Titans will actually trade up for anybody right now. Really quick, before we get into this, Brian, number 1, right, is that going to change ever for you, do you feel like, throughout this whole draft process? I know you have, like, Brian's mock 1, mock 2, mock 3. Is there any doubt that the Jaguars are not going to take Trevor Lawrence?
I think I'm on, like, mock 6.0 already. But no, I don't think it is. I think that they're going to. It's set in stone. I think Trevor Lawrence is that elite of a prospect. I think, I know there was some speculation. Oh, Justin Fields is Ohio State quarterback, but Urban Meyer didn't coach him at Ohio State. That was Ryan Day that brought him in. So other than probably being friends and respecting Ryan Day, I don't think there's any other connection. And I mean, I think part of the reason that Urban went to Jacksonville was to get Trevor Lawrence.
Well, I mean, I really liked him going in that playoff game with Fields, but then people mention the Northwestern game, and maybe he didn't live up to what maybe everybody thought he was going to be. But Lawrence, I mean, I'm hearing ridiculous stuff, Brian. Am I way off? Jacksonville's going to be a playoff team next year, and after that, year number 2, he's going to lead them possibly to the Super Bowl. How good is Lawrence? Is he better than Luck? Is he better than any of these guys that Peyton Manning when they came out? What do we feel with Lawrence? Because he's definitely getting the pub, that's for sure.
I think he's on pace with Andrew Luck. I think he's that elite type of quarterback. He's got the best anticipation skills I've ever scouted. I don't like to use the term scout. I think of scouts, I think of the guys that are paid for NFL teams. So any player that I've broken down, he's got the best anticipation skills. The thing about him is usually you get the guys that are like, you think of Josh Allen, freak athlete, freak physical traits, and he's able to get away with not having some of the mental side of the game because he can just kind of rifle the ball in, and he doesn't have to see guys coming open. He can just use his arm strength to get it in. And then you see other guys who maybe don't have, like Tua. Tua is a guy that when I watched him, he didn't have the best arm strength, but his anticipation, his being able to see guys getting open, and that was at a higher level. And so usually you have one or the other. And to me, Trevor Lawrence has both. Every single breaking route, whether it's in-breaking throw or an out-breaking route or a comeback, every single one of those was thrown with anticipation. So that ball was coming out before those receivers were making their breaks. And that's just unreal. Usually it's like, okay, I kind of got to look for it. Oh, here's a few times during the game. It was literally almost every single throw. And that was just unreal to me. And I haven't seen that in the 11 years. I think Andrew Luck, he's right into that same conversation.
Oh, you weren't supposed to say that, man. Now I'm getting kind of worried. I'm getting kind of, because ESPN put them in the playoffs over us for next year already. So, we kind of laughed.
That's a hot take.
Okay, so we're starting off. Jack, he's a Colts fan, so shout out to Jack. Jack is actually a Hoosier fan. Go figure. So we were mentioning a little college basketball. Please do not share anything with Illinois. They don't tip until 8 o'clock. But with the Illini, you just never know. Who would have thought they would have everything going on with Nebraska? I give Nebraska credit, though. They did bounce back and beat Penn State. Penn State's okay. So I'm not sure how great of a win that was for Nebraska. But, hey, it snapped the losing streak in the Big Ten. But thanks so much, Jack, for the super chat. So here's kind of what I'm envisioning. We'll start off. We'll just go 1 through 5. I got the little slide things made, and Brian can kind of chime in and talk about these guys and maybe why they're mocked where they are. Brian does a really, really good job, by the way. So, like in the past, Brian will even give you guys that he was considering and all that other stuff. So he does a really, really good job. And you could tell from how he talks, by the way. I mean, he knows his stuff. Let's just be honest. But I talked to Brian a little bit before the show. If we could kind of push this along, then he's willing to stay for a little bit. So we'll get we'll be done by 8 o'clock, or not 8 o'clock, 8:30, sorry. But we'll be done by 8:30, but Brian will answer questions. So if we can kind of move this along a little bit, I apologize. I'm not going to get to your questions right away, but we will definitely be able to ask Brian some questions. And, if you're not a part of this mock draft, remember, you can go find Brian's stuff at the Huddle Report. You can go find it on his YouTube channel. But get over there and subscribe to the guy. I mean, there's no reason why this guy doesn't have like 10, 15, 20, 30, 35, 40, whatever, 1,000 subs. I mean, he does a really, really good job. So let's start it off, Brian. So we'll move into us going to a different slide. Here we go. Boom. Number 1, no surprise there, Trevor Lawrence. You gave us a little bit of an insight already on Lawrence. Do you think this is a good match, though, with Urban Meyer, long road? We know you're saying Lawrence is like Luck, but is Urban Meyer a really good fit for Jacksonville?
I think that if the Cons stay out of the personnel decisions and let Urban run this team, I think they can have success. I think they can. I don't know if they're going to be a Super Bowl. I mean, but heck, if Trevor Lawrence pans out to be the next Andrew Luck, they have Super Bowl capabilities. I think Urban Meyer was one of the best, is one of the best college football coaches. We haven't seen a lot of people have success going from college to the NFL. It's hit or miss. But I think Urban is a guy that the thing that really stood out to me was he left Florida and went to Ohio State. He didn't bring all his Florida coaches. He went out and hired all new coaches. So he's not afraid of other people's opinions. He doesn't have to have his type of guy. And so I think he's going to have success because he's already bringing NFL guys. And I know some of his coordinator hires weren't the most, didn't really jump out at you. But I think it's, he's getting guys that have experience. And he's, I think a lot of people think of Urban Meyer, they think of Tim Tebow, they think of Alex Smith, and that kind of that option-based offense. His last several years at Ohio State, they were he had Cardale Jones, he had who's the other guy? Just Dwayne Haskins. I mean, those guys are those are pocket passers, and so he's had success with them. He's not afraid to push the ball down the field. They kind of went more to a pro style, or as pro style as you can get with that spread. So I think he's going to have success with Trevor Lawrence, and it's all about, can they protect him? Can they, can they have weapons? I think DJ Chark's a good receiver, but can they build around Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, and they will have a lot of cap room, so they do have that, but they fell in that trap before. I don't want to spend too much more time on Jacksonville. That's UCF Jaguars territory. But like I said, they've already went down that road. They built a great defense through free agency, but it shows you how long it lasts. It didn't last very long. All right, so then we get into the more intriguing stuff. I mean, this could go any direction. I've seen offensive linemen taken here. Quarterbacks have not Wilson from BYU. My stance on Wilson, Coastal Carolina had a great season. Don't get me wrong, right? Great season. But if you're going number 2 and people are envisioning this guy as being the real deal, a strong number 2, not just a number 2, a strong number 2, you got to be Coastal Carolina, man. So why is Zach Wilson a good fit, do you think, with the Jets? And why do you think he'll go to the Jets?
Now, I actually have Justin Fields as my second-rated quarterback. But this goes into fit and scheme and all that. And so Zach Wilson, first off, I get what you're saying about Coastal Carolina, but let's not forget that game was scheduled like 3-4 days in advance. So they had to travel all the way across the country. He didn't play well, but he did play well against Central Florida. He did play well. I think I watched 4 or 5 games on him this year, and he's got his flaws. He's not, there's a good separation between him and Trevor Lawrence. And I actually have him and Justin Fields with a similar grade. Fields got the bump for me because of his size, playing in he played in bigger games and excelled in bigger games. But to me, Wilson is a better fit in that Shanahan style offense. And the Jets are bringing in Mike LaFleur, who's Matt LaFleur, the Packers head coach, his brother, as their offensive coordinator. And he's going to run that Shanahan style offense. And that's all based off of, the zone running scheme, bootlegs, intermediate passing. And I thought Wilson was much better on that. I think Fields is better when he's able to drive the ball down the field and more of a vertical passing game, whereas Wilson can still throw the ball deep, but he's a lot more accurate on his underneath. He has a little bit better touch, a little bit better in those throws. So I think Wilson is a better fit scheme-wise. Now, I think Fields would do well in this scheme too, but I think the reason why I put Wilson there is, he seems like he's the better fit in that offense.
So you think Darnold's gone then? It would mean Darnold would be gone. Indianapolis?
Yes. I think Indy, Chicago, Carolina possibly. I don't think. No, I mean not Carolina, but I think those two. I think maybe the team that doesn't get Wentz probably gets Darnold.
Okay. Now, would Darnold be a good fit in Washington? We've seen they've actually reached out to Marcus Mariota possibly. Do they want that style of quarterback, or would they want more of a Wilson type?
I think
Darnold. My bad.
I think Darnold would have success there. That's that North Turner style offense, so vertical passing game. Darnold's got a strong arm. I think the reason why the Jets go quarterback, you're rebuilding, and so if they were to keep Darnold, they would have to evaluate him off of this 1 year, and then have to pay him. Pick up that 5th-year option, and then probably end up paying him. And when you're trying to rebuild, you kind of probably want that rookie quarterback on that rookie wage scale, so you can kind of maybe, if they hit right away, you can kind of build around them first. And that's kind of the way the NFL is going, especially with these teams looking to rebuild. So I think you got a new coach, you got a new offense and all that. You just, you're rebuilding. Let's just go with the quarterback. So that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Okay. So number 3, you go Jamar Chase. Is this the guy where a lot of people kind of connect him to maybe like an A.J. Brown type? Or am I off on that one?
Yeah, he's a little bit not as big. I think height wise, because what's AJ like 6'1", 6'2". Chase
Yeah,
is probably 6'1", probably 6', 6'1". Probably about 10-15 pounds lighter, but they have a very similar skill set, and that they're not the. It's not like they're 6'5" and they're winning the contested catches. They play a lot bigger than their height and their size indicates. But he's got that same type of playing style. He's explosive. He's powerful. He's a guy that you kind of reminds me a little bit of Sammy Watkins too, where he's just like he's almost like a power forward that gets the ball and it can be great run after the catch. And I think Tua needs weapons. Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, they don't have any weapons. And so I think Chase would be a guy that would really help. And, he opted out and didn't play this year, but he's still, in my opinion, I think he's going to be the first wide receiver taken.
Okay. I kind of feel like Dolphins maybe go offensive lineman here, but I'm not a draft guy. But they could definitely build that offensive line for whatever they want to do. But you don't have an offensive line going for 4. So you actually have Justin Fields, a quarterback, going with former Titans offensive coordinator. Why do you think that's a good fit in Atlanta with Fields?
I think he's best available, so that's one thing. I think he's that good athlete, so a lot of things that they were able to do with Tannehill and his athleticism, I think will be helpful. And the reason, it's tough because they got Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan's under contract. But the thing about this is the Falcons have a talented team. Their offense is talented, and Arthur Smith is probably like, hey, I can get this offense going. We've got pieces on defense. They probably think, when are we ever going to be picking in the top 5 again? And when are we ever going to have a chance at this future franchise quarterback? And I think they'll say, hey, if a guy like Justin Fields falls to them, they'll take him, and then they'll worry about what to do with Matt Ryan later. I don't see them trading up. I think if Fields falls to him, I think he's an Atlanta kid too. He's from Georgia. That's where he grew up. That's where he went to high school. And so I think that pulls too, and so I think Penei Sewell is a possibility here if they don't go quarterback. But like I said, I think if the quarterback's not, if Fields is there, I think they take him.
Okay. I like Fields. I would go with Fields. Like you said, you had him rated 2, right? But you just thought it was a better fit for the Jets. Yes. But Fields, I think, can do a lot of stuff. And plus, those little fake custom drafts on Madden, I took Fields and got him all the way up to a 99. But I remember Jamar Chase. You got a question from Jack. He's not sure why you did put Devontae Smith ahead of him. But did any quick comment before we move on to the Bengals?
I like Devontae Smith quite a bit, but I think his size is going to be a big knock. We've only seen 2, he's like 166, 170 pounds, under 6 foot. We've only seen 2 players that size go in the top 10 in the last, 10 years. And it was Tavon Austin and John Ross. So I think a lot of teams will be like, and this is still a size league. As much as we've seen bigger receivers have success or smaller receivers have success, I just think, with his size and with a guy like Jamar Chase, who I think is going to grade very similarly, I think they go off that size. And who knows, maybe they take a tackle there. Maybe Penei Sewell is going to be their pick at 3. They do have a second first-round pick, and maybe a guy like Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddell is still available at that pick, and they're able to get their receiver there.
Yeah. There are a couple good, really quality wide receivers that I think they can have their choice with. But like I said, Jamar, I think a lot of them are going to just depends on what style you're running and obviously who the quarterback's going to be too. So we move on to the Bengals. Now the Titan fans know a lot about the Bengals because, Brian, I don't know if you remember this, we lost to the Bengals. Believe it or not, we lost to the Bengals. So we went to Cincinnati, Brian, and it was like 40-mile-an-hour winds that week. And the entire Bengals offensive line was out. The entire offensive line. Okay, so they were just backups to backups to backups. Do you know how many sacks we had in that game, Brian?
8.
0. Zero. And it's like we were harping on this show over and over and over. Pass rush, pass rush, pass rush. We would dress 3 pass rushers. I'm not going to go down the whole Beasley thing. And then you had the whole Clowney thing. He gets hurt. It's just we were putting all our stock into Wyatt Ray. I don't know if you ever heard of Wyatt Ray, but Wyatt Ray. So the Bengals going offensive line for Burrow. If this guy I like this guy from Oregon. If he falls to them, I think this is a very, very solid. Because some people will mock another wide receiver, which I don't really agree with at this point. But they need to build up that offensive line. What can you tell our viewers about Sewell?
Yeah, Penei Sewell's a guy that I really like, and he just jumped out at me as soon as, Oregon's offensive line 2 years ago when Justin Herbert was a senior, they had the best offensive line in college football. And Sewell's a guy that I don't want to use the term generational because, it's pretty hyperbole, but he's probably he's probably the best offensive tackle I've scouted. And you have one of the best quarterbacks that I've ever scouted, one of the best offensive linemen. I think he's got good athleticism. He's got good strength. He can do it all. Now, he's not finished, which is maybe a little scary because he's got sky-high potential. But the Bengals have to improve their offensive line. And I think you could put Sewell in there at left tackle. Jonah Williams, who was their left tackle this year, has played guard in his past at Alabama. He's played right tackle. And so I think you kind of move him into a different spot. And you're able to, you got to protect Joe Burrow. And he left last year with an injury. He looked like the real deal before he got hurt. So you have to protect him. And I think if a guy like Sewell's available, I think they're ecstatic.
Okay, so here we go. 1 through 5. Lawrence obviously going number 1. Wilson, a little bit to shock probably to some people, but Wilson, I've heard 2 or 3 as well, so I completely agree if Brian wants to put him there. Jamar Chase, I know, Jack wasn't super, I wouldn't say excited about it, but, he did. It's okay. It's okay to ask questions. I mean, I ask questions all the time, let me tell you, and because I'm trying to learn more and more stuff out of this, so it's okay. I mean, if you think someone's better than someone else, fine. I mean, Brian told you right away, like, he didn't believe in the Isaiah Wilson pick. He just thought that's what the Titans were going to do, and that's what we did. So then we got, like I said, Chase and then Fields and then Sewell, the talented offensive lineman. Brian's one of his best offensive linemen from Oregon. So let's keep this thing going, moving right along. So we go 6 through 10. So we'll start off with Jalen from Bama. What can you tell us about him and why does he fit well with the Eagles? Because some people think the Eagles might be trading Wentz, obviously, but might actually be maybe interested in the quarterback.
Yeah, I think if they do end up trading Wentz, a quarterback is in play here. I did this mock without any trades, and I think my next one might have a Wentz type trade. And so Waddle's a guy that I absolutely love. He's actually my number 1 rated receiver in this class. I know Devontae Smith was tremendous. Heisman Trophy winner. You don't usually see that out of a receiver. I thought before Waddle got hurt, he was even better. He to me has, if we look at the Alabama receivers, it's been they've had so many good receivers, and so you look at the guys they had last year with Henry Ruggs, who was the elite speed demon, whatever you want to call it. I think Jalen Waddell's just as fast, if not just a tidge slower than him. So he's got that elite speed. And then Jerry Jeudy, who was picked last year in the top number 15 to the Broncos, he was an elite route runner. And I think Waddell has got Ruggs' speed with Judy's route running ability. And I think that makes him a complete package. He's a little bit smaller, so he does have the size of a Jamar Chase, but he's got elite speed. He can run routes. He can return kicks. And I think the Eagles, they when Deshaun Jackson was there, that offense was explosive. He couldn't stay healthy. It hurt. I think they say, hey, we need that explosiveness. They've got Fulgham. They've got Greg Ward. I'm sure they'll bring in some free agent, but they say we need to get more explosive. And that's why I think a guy like Jalen Waddell would be a perfect fit for what they want to do.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Like I said, you got some really talented wide receivers. And as a Titans fan, I mean, I'm just going to throw it out there to you because I don't think he's coming back. Corey Davis, once upon a time, Brian, went 5th overall. Would Corey Davis, Is he better than any of these guys we've mentioned so far?
He played pretty well at the end of the season, didn't he?
Actually, towards the end of the season, didn't really. A lot of it is them not throwing him the ball, making him a vital piece of the offense. But the last game of the season against Houston, he had like 3 drops that would have put him over 1,000 yards. But yeah, you're right. He had his best season as a Titan this year. And I think he ends up in Chicago. I've been saying it all along. He lost his brother, unfortunately, Titus, who I believe was 27. He gave birth to a baby towards the end of the year, I believe it was. And he's a family guy. Been to the camp before. Really awesome guy to meet personally. Like his family, they're very close. Obviously, most families are. But this family's super, super close. They were all there at the camp together hanging out. I think he's going to want to go back home, whether it's Green Bay, whether it's Chicago. And we know Chicago with Robinson maybe needs a wide receiver. But I was just kind of comparing just to see anybody. You know, you mentioned A.J. Brown earlier. It's just I mean, they're out of that stock of wide receivers. If you go back in the draft from when he was drafted, so you had the speedster Ross, you had Williams from Clemson. Those top 3 with Davis versus these top 3, who would you take?
I probably like these 3. I wasn't the biggest Davis fan. To me, one of the things I didn't like him coming out, and this is probably more of a personal preference, is I didn't like he never went up and high pointed the ball, and that's a big thing for me. I want guys that can go up and win that contested catch. You saw that with an A.J. Brown, and that was one of the things that kind of soured me a little bit on them. So I didn't have in that class, if I remember right, I think all my receivers I didn't have a single one rated in my top 10. And I've got, I think Chase is like 7th or 8th. Jalen Waddell's like 3 or 4. And so in my rankings. So I kind of like this class a little bit better.
Kind of pains me. We could have had Lattimore. I think Lattimore went right after him. Oh, man. Oh, well. So let's move on. Trey Lance, North Dakota State. Me being an Illinois State Redbird myself, and I think Al, wherever he is, there's a connection there. Run-heavy offense. I believe he sat out this season, or they didn't play, or they only had one game, something like that.
One game.
But what can you tell us about Trey Lance? Because honestly, I've heard a lot of good things about him.
Yeah, he's got a lot of potential. It's just he is inexperienced. He's got only 1 full year as a starter. They went on and won a national championship, and I think they played like 16 games that year, something like that. And then, they did have the 1 game this year. He didn't have the best game, but, with it being 1 game and that being your whole season, I'm sure the pressure was intense. But he's a guy that's got that potential. He's got a strong arm. He's a good athlete. The thing that really kind of pauses me a little bit is he struggles a little bit with the anticipation and timing. If you watch, I did a film room breakdown on him on my YouTube channel, and I broke that down. A lot of his in-breaking routes, the ball is behind or out. It's off target to his receivers. And a lot of times balls would have been probably picked off in the NFL level or even, not at the FCS level. And so that's something I think it's maybe just an experience thing. I think if he would have had a full season this year, maybe he could have came back and kind of shown that. So he's my 4th receiver in this class, just because I think he's a little bit more of a developmental. That's why I think the Lions are a good pick spot for him, even though they traded for Jared Goff. Jared Goff is essentially on a 2-year contract.
True.
And the Lions can move off of him after 2 years, and they're rebuilding. And so I can see them, and this is a guy that all the stuff that they've talked about that they wanted out of a quarterback, it points to Trey Lance. Big arm, athletic. And I think Lance is a guy that could kind of go the Patrick Mahomes route and sit that full year because they don't need him. They got Jared Goff. They could work in refining it on some of those issues. And then year 2, if he's ready, start him, and then Goff is your backup for 1 year, and then you move off of Goff after that. So I think that's a possibility. It's not going to shock me one bit if they pass on quarterback here, but I think Lance sitting there at 7 has a lot with what they want.
Yeah, and they have their dead cap is like almost $50 million. It's unbelievable, them and the Rams. So I'm shocked they were able to work something out between the two. But again, Goff, as you mentioned, 2-year contract. Maybe he does okay. Is it McVay? Is it Goff? I'm not sure, but there was definitely a divide there. So let's move on to the Panthers, because this one shocks me, because this is a guy who somebody mentioned in the chat, 6'6", has attributes almost like a Travis Kelce. And I'm thinking, okay, if we don't get Jonnu Smith back, if we don't sign him back in free agency, could the Titans possibly fall into this guy? And then I look at your mock draft and you got him 8th. So then I'm like, oh, that's out the window. But what can you tell? Why is this a good fit for Carolina, trying to eventually get back an Olsen replacement from years and years ago? But they got Bridgewater. So you're saying they're going in another season with Bridgewater, and then Kyle Pitts from Florida's the guy.
Yeah, here's another team that could definitely go quarterback, and I think they went hard after Matthew Stafford. So Carson Wentz, and others, I think they could, Deshaun Watson, I think they're probably trying to get a hold of him. But I think they want weapons. Last year's draft, every single player they drafted last year was a defensive player, and they built up that defense. And so I think they're going to go the other way around. And Joe Brady's back as their offensive coordinator. They've got some weapons at receiver with DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson and Curtis Samuel. But I think Pitts is a guy, he is such a freak of an athlete. I know there's some people out there that are listing him as a receiver, but he lined up at Florida in line. He did block. The tight end that I compare him the most to is Darren Waller, who had a tremendous season for the Raiders, and former receiver that moved inside to tight end. And I think Pitts in the Panthers system, and they're going to be able to scheme him open, running crossers, running deep routes at the seam against linebackers. This summer, I had not heard, all I heard was, hey, Kyle Pitts is a tight end. That's all I've heard. I throw on his tape, and he's running routes like a receiver. I mean, he's blowing past corners in the SEC with his route running and his athleticism. And he's a tremendous jump ball thrower. I mean, Kyle Trask would just throw the ball up to him, and he'd go up and get it. And some of the tight ends that we've seen that I've really liked, O.J. Howard, you look at the 2 Iowa tight ends, Fant and Hawkinson, they were all good athletes, but they didn't have the explosiveness, the leaping ability that we see out of Pitts, and he's an instant red zone weapon. He's a mismatch for tight ends. I think he's tight ends in the first round. It can be kind of bust heavy. And so especially in the top 10, but I think this guy's worth it. He's one of my 5 best players in this draft. I absolutely love Kyle Pitts.
The more and more, you guys, if you don't really know much about him, or you're like me, you're kind of mediocre when it comes to college football. Like, Illinois is always garbage. Shout out to Lovie Smith, though. I'm glad he was able. I didn't want him on Houston, but I was actually hoping he'd be our defensive coordinator. I know we run different schemes, but our scheme's awful anyways. But Illinois, usually bad, so I kind of whatever. Miami, hit or miss. But this guy, the more and more I look at him, the more and more tape I watch on him, I'm just like, man, I would consider drafting him at 22. But like I said, you got him going at 8, so there's no chance of that. Moving on. So Parsons. Now this is a guy, like I mentioned, we play Madden. So shout out to Chris and Cade if they're watching. But my buddy Chris is a huge Cowboys fan, so you can do the whole fake custom drafts. So I never heard of this guy. And then he took him, Chris took him, and he's really, really good on his team. And anyways, so Parson can play many different positions, I think, on defensive line and stuff like that with linebacker. I should say linebacker, I'm sorry, inside, outside, whatever. How good is this guy? And the Broncos are just this is just their MO. This is what they do. But is there any chance for me personally that he might slip at all? Or is you think he's for sure going in top 10?
No, I think he could definitely slip. I didn't really, to me, I could have gone cornerback here for the Broncos, and I just thought, hey, this is kind of a fit. I think this is, in my opinion, the ceiling for Rika Parsons. He's got a lot of talent, and there's going to be other draft analysts that love him, say he's the number 1 defensive player in this draft. I have him as a late first round grade, and
Ooh.
I think he's athletic as all can be. I think he can go sideline to sideline. I think he could play in coverage. He can blitz off the edge. My concern, and once again, I'm going to tout my YouTube channel again. I did a scouting report video on him. One of the things about him is when he's lined up as a stacked inside linebacker, he doesn't necessarily, I don't know if he just doesn't see it or if he's just he hesitates way too much. And there's plays out there, and I highlight him on that video, where he will pause, or he'll start running and look like he's going, and then he'll like hesitate. Maybe it's like a play action, and that extra step, that extra hesitation causes him to miss way too many plays. And then when Penn State would move him off to the edge and he was able to just turn it loose and go, that's where he made a lot of his plays. And Parsons is a guy that when he was recruited, when he was a high school kid recruited, a lot of schools looked at him as a 3-4 outside linebacker. And that's where a lot of school, like Nebraska was recruiting him heavily as a 3-4 outside linebacker. I know Penn State wanted him at defensive end, or Ohio State, Oklahoma wanted him at a 3-4 outside linebacker. He ends up out of the blue going to Penn State, and they put him at stacked linebacker, and he's had success. Don't get me wrong. But I think those issues cause me to pause a little bit in my evaluation. Now, that being said, if there's a single person out there that I trust that turn him into an absolute stud inside linebacker, it's Vic Fangio, who had Roquan Smith in Chicago. He had Willis and Navarro Bowman in San Francisco. So I think he would be able – Parsons athletically can do everything that Fangio wants. And so I think Fangio would know how to use him, be able to develop him. But I wouldn't be shocked if he falls to closer to the 20s. And you're seeing a lot of the national draft people, that's where they're having them in the mock. And those are the guys that are tied in with the NFL teams. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on.
Do you think he's a fit in Tennessee if Jayon Brown don't come back?
Yeah, I mean, I think his best fit initially, and I had this discussion with another draft analyst, I think if you could play him a little bit more on that edge initially as a rookie, and kind of move him around, not stick him in as your middle linebacker, making the calls, doing all that stuff, I think that's where he has his best chance to have success. So you've already got Rashad Evans. I think he can have success there. So if he falls, I definitely think, and he gives you another pass rusher off the edge too on, passing situations. So.
Okay. I mean, he was a stud man. He was a stud. He had like 92 speed. I mean, he was all over me all the time. I could not beat him with this guy. I still can't beat him. But anyways, number 10. So here's our top 10, and then we'll get I had to really, really push Brian for the Colts, guys. I'm sorry, but I got the Colts, and we obviously got the Titans, but we're not doing anything 11 through 20 or anything past the Titans at 22. If you want to check that out, head over to Brian's channel on YouTube. Like he said, he breaks stuff down. He points out things. He breaks down film. Definitely want to go check him out. I got him up on the upper left over there. And then he's got a Twitter account. He posts some, little snapshot type things throughout. And then obviously he does stuff on the Huddle Report. So at number 10, you're going to the Cowboys. You're going cornerback here. Okay. Why not Patrick Surtain? I
like Surtain's my number one corner. So that being said, I think it's more of a fit. Caleb Farley from Virginia Tech, I think once again it's more of a fit with the Cowboys. They've got Dan Quinn as their new defensive coordinator, so they're going to run that Seattle style cover 3. So they want their big physical press man corners. They've got Trayvon Diggs, who we talked about in the flashback video, who had a good year last year. And they need that other corner, and I think Surtain can fit in that. But Surtain, I don't know if you're gonna line him up press man cover 3, I don't know if he's the guy that you want for that. Play in and play out. I think he could do it, but I think Fairley's a guy, speed, physicality, ball skills. I think he's a perfect fit with what they want to do, and I think that defense, if they can get another good corner. I think the defense is set up to make a big rebound after the debacle that we saw this year.
So there we go. We get Bama wide receiver. We go North Dakota State quarterback, the 6'6" phenom from Florida who could play wide receiver, tight end. He can do it all. My Madden just stud in Parsons from Penn State. and then Farley goes to from Virginia Tech, goes to Dallas. So there we go, 6 through 10. So we got a couple left. Again, if you want the full mock, definitely head over to Brian's channel. He said he's already on 6. So, I mean, he'll be doing plenty more. How many do you think, really quick as a segue, of mock drafts that you will run? If you were being serious about 6, which I actually think you are, how many do you do during a given season when football is officially, I mean, whenever? How many mock drafts do you do just throughout from the time the draft ends to the time the other draft starts?
Oh, I would say anywhere between 15 and 20.
Okay.
Just because the mock draft is the thing that got me into the draft. You know, back before I did even anything draft related, I always wanted to see who my team was going to pick and who, you know, I was always a big college football fan. So where are the top college football players going to go? And I always went and sought out the mocks, and I think that's what a lot of fans. And it's like it's what the fans want, and they want to see who their team's going to take. And so that's why I always try to do that. And it's the fan in me, and so I try to do a lot. I know if trying to do a summary for every single team can be a little dragging, but I try to do 15 to 20. Sometimes I'll have a summary for every single pick. Sometimes I'll highlight just like 5 or 6. Sometimes I'll just put the picks. And so, you know, I've been doing it with the Huddle Report. I've been doing a lot of Tuesday top 10s. And so I'll just put out the top 10, just quick and easy, no explanations, put up a graphic. And so I could probably get, you know, probably it's going to be closer to 20 by the end of the season. So by the time the draft comes.
Wow. And how many fights does that cause at home, by the way? Does any cause any fights?
A lot of times. No, not really.
Oh, okay.
That's more of the film breakdown.
Yeah, I know it's consuming though. It takes a lot of time. You know what I mean? It's you have to. You mentioned you live in Nebraska, and I know you're like a college football guy. That helps. But again, there's just so many prospects. There's so much going on, and there's just thousands and thousands, it seems, of college football games on every year. And then you got college football guys that, you know, they sit out a season or they're not in the top tier like Alabama, Clemson, so maybe they play like Illinois State or North Dakota State. I mean, you got to cover all sorts of areas with that. So, again, this is Brian. He's my draft guru guy. I mean, he really does know his stuff. He nailed the Titans pick last year. And Isaiah Wilson, a lot of us are like, wait, what? And Brian was like, I wouldn't take him, but I think you guys will. And we did. And now it was reported even today, John Robinson says, hey, dude, you got a decision to make. I'm surprised he hasn't been cut yet. So we'll see what happens with Isaiah Wilson. So let's get into the Titans. I know that Adam wanted to know where to find your channel. Again, I have it listed right here. Draft_Brian. You can find him on YouTube. That's where he puts all his good stuff, I'll tell you that. But you got to subscribe, hit that bell for notifications because, like I said, 20 mock drafts. You want to be, you want to know when things change, right? That we're fans, we love that stuff. And then he's got some good stuff on Twitter too. So don't just fall short on Twitter. And then also the Huddle Report where he does a lot of his writing breakdowns. So we got 2 left to get through: the Titans and the Colts. Unfortunately, the Colts pick first. And Brian, the Colts don't have a quarterback. And I think Jack's starting to get worried. I don't know if Jack's still here or not. But what do you think the Colts are going to do? You got them going with Isaiah Wilson. Mac Jones. Why does Mac Jones, does he fall? I've seen mock drafts where he's in the top 15 for sure. I mean, does he get by New England, for example? You got him getting by New England. You got him falling with the Colts. So it doesn't look like the Colts are going to pick up a free agent quarterback possibly, or is this guy more of is he going to be an instant starter in Indy?
I think if they draft him, he's going to be relatively quick. And I think he's built and he's got the experience that can come in and start day one. And in this situation, if they're taking Mac Jones, that means they've missed out on Carson Wentz. Maybe they didn't feel they wanted to go on Sam Darnold. Now, I think the reason why I could see them not getting Carson Wentz is I think Chris Ballard is a guy that he's not going to go completely all in. And I think he has a limit to where he wants to go to get like a Carson Wentz. and he's not willing to go over that. And a team like Chicago that's maybe a little bit more desperate, whose coaching staff and general manager knows that if they don't have success this year and get this quarterback situation fixed, they're going to get fired. And so I think they're more willing to bet the farm to get a quarterback. And whereas the Colts, I think they feel that they don't have to go that way, or maybe they don't want to go that way. And I could be totally wrong. I could be 100% wrong, and maybe they go all in and throw a bunch of picks at Carson Wentz. Maybe they trade up to get somebody. But I think they kind of get, unfortunately, left out, depending on who you are. And I think Mac Jones is a guy that I'm not in love with him, but I think he's clearly the 5th best quarterback in this class, and I think that's going to get him in. His skill set and his value gets you picked in the first round. Even though I don't have him as the first round grade, it gets you picked there, and I think he can have a lot of success with Indianapolis. He's a distributor. He's like an old school basketball point guard who is just knows. He's that guy that knows how to get the ball to the shooters in the perfect spot to get their shots up. Look at him at Alabama. He had Waddell, he had Devontae Smith, and he's an accurate thrower, short to intermediate routes. He's got good ball placement. And I think they got weapons. I like Michael Pittman. T.Y. Hilton's still got talent, Jack Doyle. And you got a good offensive line. You got a good rushing attack. I think he doesn't have to come in there and carry the load. And he could just distribute the ball, hand the ball off, and be an upgrade over what they've had.
So I've been dying to ask you this. I know this is going to be a tough one because of where people are drafted and all that stuff. But coming out of Bama, Mac Jones or Tua, who do you think was who's better?
I like Tua more, but there's people out there that have said, what's the difference between the two? And if you look at it, they play a very similar game. Tua doesn't have this cannon for an arm. He was a guy, and one of the things when Tua came out and got drafted to the Dolphins, I did one of my YouTube videos was which quarterback was in the best position to have success. And Justin Herbert was the guy that I thought had the best chance for success, and we saw that this year. And I thought Tua was a guy that he had all these weapons. Tua had better receivers his final year at Alabama than some NFL teams. I mean, he's going to have 4 of those receivers all get drafted, I think, in the top 15. And so Mac Jones, I mean, I can't say with a straight face that they're not similar. And I think that could scare some teams off. That could say some teams saying, hey, look, this guy was just as good as Tua. Let's go ahead and take him there. And I think Tua to me had better anticipation skills. He was able to throw guys open a lot better at a higher level than Mac Jones, but Mac Jones isn't a bad quarterback. He's not. I don't think he's a guy that is a franchise quarterback. I think he could be a solid starter in the league, or at least starting quality. But there's a lot of teams that don't have that in the NFL right now.
Very true. Very true. So here's the time we come to, number 22, the Tennessee Titans. We wanted a pass rusher last year in the draft. How many pass rushers did the Titans draft last year, Brian?
0.
0, right? So it's like we don't have a lot of depth. And then Correa didn't want to be there. I don't blame Correa one bit. Correa saw it practice on Beasley, and oh my goodness, I don't want to go back down that story. But the Titans, we're hoping to be able to do a little bit during free agency. We need to do more than just J.J. Watt, for example. We need to put a couple guys into place and really build and bolster that defensive line, hoping the secondary will be better. Before you get to this pick, last year, going back and looking at the draft, I'm going to try to remember. It's awful, though. Wilson, 1. Fulton, 2. Running back from App State, Evans, 3. Ryan Tannehill, number 4. He was drafted in the 4th round, Brian, realistically. He was the trade. 5th, we went with Murchison. 6th, we didn't have a pick. 7th, we took McDonald from Hawaii, and then we cut him 4 practices in. Still unbelievable about that one. And then finally, Chris Jackson, who came from Marshall and actually played a lot in the first 3 games, and then he didn't really play much. How would you give them a grade, A through F, based on what you know right now?
I don't think it's very good. I mean, Fulton got hurt, if I'm not mistaken.
True.
Right?
Yeah, he kind of hurt his hamstring during the. Yeah.
Wilson just wanted to party at colleges. Evans, I liked Evans a lot. Murchison was a guy that I thought was appropriate value. So, but I mean, you only got really last year. Nobody came in and was a starter. And that. So, I mean, who knows? The nice thing is those players still have next year, and Fulton could be a guy that I thought if he would have gone in the first round, it wouldn't have surprised me, and I wouldn't have been like, oh, this is a terrible pick. I wasn't the biggest fan of him, but I thought late first round was decent value, so I thought getting him in round 2 was a good pick. And so I mean, like I said, Evans was my 5th rated running back last year, so I mean, but he's not going to take too many carries away from Derrick Henry.
No, and he was hurt too. Both him and Fulton missed a lot of training camp, and with the shortened season as far as off season goes with everything, it just wasn't. It just wasn't in the cards. And then at the end of the year, they actually had him as a kick returner, and I think he had 1 carry in the playoff loss to the Ravens. But we're hoping he's going to be the solid number 2 behind Derrick Henry. So here we go. There are some edge rushers on the board. Why does this one make the most sense with, is this pronounced right, Azeez Ojulari?
Ojulari, yep. I was going to give you a hard time because it looked like you were going to duck saying his name, but
I know I've been practicing a little bit, but being a history guy, there are a lot of names. I remember struggling. I was getting evaluated, and I had to say the name totalitarianism, and I just, oh man, I was all across the board. It was keeping me up at night. I was breaking it down, and finally it clicks. But this it was a struggle, Brian. I'm not gonna lie. But why does he make sense? The edge rusher from Georgia.
Real quick, I think this is funny. I had a radio interview coming up before the Senior Bowl and I was highlighting the Nebraska left tackle, and I said, "Oh, hey, he's gonna have to face one of the best defensive tackles at the Senior Bowl, the guy from Washington." And so I spent the whole morning working on the name, didn't even get to say it. So, so no, Ojulari is a guy that I need to watch more film on him. I'll be 100% transparent. The little that I have, you see the potential. I just haven't seen enough of it. But you watch his game if you want to see what he can be, go watch that game against Cincinnati in I don't know if it's the Cotton Bowl or whatever, one of the college football the New Year's Six Bowls. And he is a true speed rusher. And late in that game, when Cincinnati was trying to make a run to win the game, he took over that game. He took it over, was just blowing past the tackles on the end, sacking the quarterback, and he won that game for Georgia. And he like I said, he's a true speed rusher. And so you got to wonder with anytime you have Harold Landry, who's a guy I absolutely loved coming out of Boston College. I think he was a top 15 player for me. And obviously injuries pushed him to the second round. Yeah. But sometimes when you have a speed rusher, you kind of go maybe more of a power type guy on the opposite end. And I think a situation like this, you just get your 2 speed rushers. And you got, whether you guys resign Clowney, you got Simmons inside. But if you can get 2 good tackles and then 2 speed guys off the edge, that just makes it extremely tough on those tackles trying to block them one-on-one. And I think he'd be a good fit there. There's other guys too. Joseph Asai from Texas is another guy. Carlos Basham, some people really like in here. I'm not the biggest fan. I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Kwity Paye from Michigan, or even Greg Rousseau. Greg Rousseau is my top-rated pass rusher. I would not be shocked if he goes in the 20s.
My buddy Titans and Truth, shout out to him. He's getting to experience a little bit what we get to experience with the snow. So for all the listeners out there that are dealing with the cold weather and the snow and all that, I mean, my goodness, we're down to 1 lanes around here. So I do not feel sorry for you guys. I mean, I kind of do, but you know what I mean. It does cause some concern and some problems. But Titans and Truth thinks he's a little bit too raw. What would be I think he had 15 and a half sacks his last year at Miami. And did he miss or didn't play this past season?
He opted out this year.
Okay.
He opted out. And so Jalen Phillips is another guy out of Miami who was the number 1 rated high school recruit, went to UCLA. They ruled him medically unfit or whatever and retired him, and then he went up going to Miami and playing this past year. He's another guy that I need to watch a little bit more on. But Rousseau's a guy that he's got a lot of potential. He's still raw and in only 1 year, and so it wouldn't shock me if he fell, just because there's just so many unknowns about him.
Captain Tripp says another Georgia player. No, thank you. I just had to throw
I never thought of that until just a little bit ago. I think before we were talking, and I'm like, wait a second, I have another Georgia player going to them. They're not going to like that. And it just never dawned on me. No.
Yeah, I'm at least okay with this one. I mean, with the Wilson one, I mean, we were all like, oh, please don't go down this road. I mean, you could have got a quality. I know that you mocked the guy from Houston, and I think that guy went. Did he go in the 3rd round, or maybe the
third round?
Third
round to Arizona, and then didn't even play. So.
Well, but I mean, he probably would have gave us more. That.
Yeah.
He actually played a few snaps against the Colts, and his first play was on kick. We were actually doing the extra point. He tripped over his own feet and fell backwards. I mean, that was his first, it just wasn't a good fit for him, and it wasn't the year for it, right? When you're supposed to be good, you're coming off an AFC championship game, and we had all sorts of issues going on when Lawan went out, Sambrello went out. Was Kelly going to be able to hold up with that right end? Well, could we have put Kelly to left tackle and then moved Wilson where he should be at right tackle? And it just never worked out. So hopefully, he figures it out. Hopefully he gets help, whatever he needs to get back out there. I mean, he was posting videos even the last week of the season, Brian, with money. He was just counting his money. He was on some boat party on New Year. I mean, he just would not get it. He did. I mean, some people thought it was fine. It's okay. He's young. He should live it up. But when it's the pandemic and everything going on, you just got, you know what I mean? You don't want Derrick Henry missing the playoff game or Ryan Tannehill. All right. So,
and that's real quick. That's why a lot of people are knocking teams for downgrading players because of off the field issues. It's because they're trying to avoid situations like that. And I think this year, without pro days, without scouts weren't able to get on campuses this year. So most of their background work that they do on these prospects is done in the fall when scouts are on campus meeting with the team. They weren't able to do that this year. There's no combine. And so I think don't be surprised if the 2021 draft, when it's 2016 or whatever, and we're 2026, and we're looking back and we're like, gosh, there are a ton of busts in this first round, and a ton of busts. And there's a lot of maybe undrafted guys that just excel. We got to remember that they're doing a lot of guesswork this year, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's why we're okay with J-Rob, and we hope he can fix this thing. Keisha says you're all better equipped with the snow. That is true. So I will give you that, Keisha. We are. Down south, I mean, they shut down. I mean, I used to live in Texas. Saw says we got 10 inches in Texas. Man, I feel bad for my brother-in-law. They leave their pool open all year, and I can't imagine what that's going to look like. So hopefully they don't lose power down there. Otherwise, that's going to be real issue. And I know a lot of places throughout Texas have lost power.
It was negative 31 here today.
They said it was actually warmer in Alaska than it has been here in. So
we had 17 inches one day a couple weeks ago. So we've had the full gamut of the winter.
Yeah, it's not over yet. Adam says great stuff. Brian, friend of mine, is a friend, or friend of Mark is a friend of mine. So I know Adam's probably went over there and subscribed. Thanks again, Adam, for all that you do for the channel and how much you participate. Again, thank you to our moderators, Sauce, Keisha. I'm not sure Richard's here or not. Michael, of course. and all you guys for helping out the channel. We really appreciate it, Sauce. But Brian, that's it. You made it. You survived. We did pretty good. We went a little bit over an hour. Are there any questions for Brian before we get out of here? I know some of you were asking about the defensive tackle from Alabama, but you definitely go check him out. Just because we only covered 1 through 10, and then I got you the Colts pick, and then obviously the Titans. He's got it all. You got to go over there and just check him out. Trust me. He says he might come out with 20 when it's all said and done. And you know what? These things change. You know, they're going to be a combine. There is going to be a combine, right? No combine either?
No.
Oh, my goodness.
Pro days.
Pro days.
And I'm working to potentially go to Nebraska's.
Okay.
We'll see if they let people in. We'll see if it works out. I have no guarantees, but I'm going to find out a little bit. But yeah, there's no combine. They're going to try and bring certain players in for medical checks. But yeah, they're going to rely heavily on the pro days, and it'll be interesting. It'll be an interesting draft season, to say the least.
Yeah, it is. Especially, you know, the combine's always something I look forward to. And it's not that far from us, Indianapolis. I think it's like 4-hour drive. But we just never end up going. Me and my son always talk about it. We just, you know what I mean? So a lot of times you get a lot of great coverage online, or not online, but also just watching on television. But
yeah, my daughters always love watching it, and I broke the news to them. I'm like, hey, there's not going to be a combine this year. And they were probably more devastated than I was. They, for some reason, love watching 40-yard dashes and vertical leaps and all that.
So, I mean, the vertical leaps, just, we've seen a few in Nashville, but, you know, yeah. So here we go. Brandon, what's going on, Brandon? He's from Arkansas. So it's like 6 here. Michael in the house, Ohio State only played 6 games. That is correct. Let's see. Some of you are really, really liking the guy from Alabama. What can you tell us? Hunter's saying he doesn't fit our scheme, but how do you feel about the defensive tackle from Alabama? I know you got him mocked somewhere, obviously. We think 10 through 20. Not going to give it away. But what do you think about him? Could he possibly move up in the top 10? Is he a guy where he could definitely bolster that defensive line for somebody?
I don't think he's a top 10 pick. Maybe, you know, this defensive tackle class is not the greatest. The whole defensive line, I think there's guys that can have success. I think you're going to get some mid-round guys that end up being, I wouldn't be shocked if like there's a second, third, or fourth round edge pass rusher that ends up being the best one in this class. But Christian Barmore from Alabama, he really took a big step forward. He really burst onto the scene in the college football playoff. You know, stout, dominant run defender, got a little bit of ability to kind of move around. But like I said, he's probably could easily be that first defensive tackle off the board. But I don't think he's a top 10 guy. I think probably that 11 to 20 range is probably his ceiling. So we'll be shocked to see if he goes in the late first round as well.
Okay. Well, again, Brian, thanks again for all that you do. Like I said, time, breaking down all these college games, you know, everything changes, trades happen, you know, quarterbacks, for example, the Colts, if they get a quarterback, they totally could change everything for you, I know. So you always have to keep up with that stuff. So do you want to go ahead and share with them one more time where they can find you at, and just a little bit about what's going on over there on Brian's channel?
Yeah, the where I do my national NFL draft coverage is at thehuddlereport.com. That's where you'll see my mock drafts. I always do a full first round, and then if I don't do a second round, I'll always throw in the teams that don't have first round picks. So the Texans, the Rams, and the Seahawks. And then my latest mock draft, I gave their first, you know, so 2 of their second round picks, and then I think the Texans, I gave a third round pick for them. So I do cover all 32 teams in my mock. So that's where you'll find my written mock. Everyone, I'm not going to do everyone on my YouTube channel just because those take quite a bit of time in editing. And so I'll usually put one a month up there so you can get kind of maybe the more detailed view. And I try to throw a few clips in there and that so you can kind of get a little feel. But The YouTube channel, everything is draft_Brian. So the Twitter, that's kind of the landing page where I kind of send everything out. I put clips on there to kind of highlight prospects and what they kind of look like. So it's one thing for me to say, hey, Christian Barmore is a physical run defender, or here's a better example. Landon Dickerson, I watched him, broke him down today. Physical center for Alabama, but then you can go to my YouTube channel and see him just pushing Auburn linebackers out of the way like they're rag dolls and all that. And then but my YouTube channel is, I think, the best thing that I do, and I think the thing that gets the most views is my player breakdowns, my film room sessions. So I just recently did Trevor Lawrence, I've done Rika Parsons, I've done Trey Lance, I've done Jalen Waddell, Jamar Chase. I've got I just need to record the Justin Fields and Zach Wilson ones. I just got to do them. But so those should be coming out probably in the next week or two. And then I'll probably do another 3, 4, 5. I like to do the small school guys because that's, last year I did Jeremy Chin, and he ends up being a second-round pick to the Panthers and has almost got Rookie of the Year. And a lot of people don't know who Jeremy Chin is because they don't watch Southern Illinois, and they get a good glimpse of him and see this guy that goes on to be, a stud in the NFL.
Al did have a real quick question for you. How much scouting have you done with the Missouri Valley Conference? Because that's our conference with Illinois State Redbirds. I don't think Missouri Valley had a season, right? I don't remember.
They
Illinois
didn't
State.
this year.
Okay. So anybody you're kind of watching it could go in the first round besides, I believe North Dakota State is now in the Missouri Valley, besides Trey Lance?
Dylan Radins, their left tackle, was another guy that played well at the Senior Bowl. He was in the first round of my mock draft. I had him going in the late mock draft, so check that out.
Okay. And
I don't go heavy in it. I'll just, if there's guys that pop up that are getting buzz or that are draftable guys, I'll usually watch them. Jeremy Chin was one guy last year, so it just kind of depends. I really wish, I don't know why ESPN's not show all the FCS is going this spring, and they're not showing it. It's all on like ESPN Plus and subscription based, and it's like, do you know how much viewership you would get if you just put that on at least ESPNU?
People would watch the XFL right now if it's existed still. I mean, it's coming back, I heard, but you know what I mean. We love football in this country. I can't figure it out why they haven't figured that one out, but whatever. Their loss. Hey, real quick, how shocked were you with Robinson from Illinois State with how actually a good season he had in Jacksonville?
A little surprising. He was a guy that I didn't really get a whole lot to watch. He wasn't, he was like a late round, 7th round pick, undrafted free agent. So I didn't get around to really fully breaking him down. And so it surprised. I know I covered the Jags a little bit with Divino Zigbo, former Nebraska player, was a running back on their team, and he didn't get any carries this year because James Robinson just dominated the workload, and looks like a guy that they can count on moving forward. So I think he'll do well with Urban Meyer in that scheme, and that's why I'm never a huge fan of taking running backs in the first round, because you can get them anywhere, and it's not to devalue the position. It's just, Saquon Barkley's a stud, but is he worth it? So, I can get a James Robinson who's not Saquon Barkley talented, but you can still get a high caliber running back all over the draft.
Yeah. I mean, how many running backs? Well, I guess I can't really spoil it, but Harris, I would think Harris would be, a lot of people really like him because he can actually catch the ball out of the backfield too, but you're right. I mean, the running backs, we got Derrick Henry in the second round. And to be honest with you, Brian, I would take Derrick Henry, even though he's the king, over Zeke. I mean, he's better than Zeke right now. He just is.
Yep.
He's the king.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we got him in the second round. And to be honest with you, you mentioned LaFleur earlier. How his his brother is in the Giants?
Jets,
New York. Well, at least I got New York. It would not shock me if they trade for Deion Lewis, because the LaFleurs, for whatever reason, just love Deion Lewis. They were going to trade Derrick Henry, believe it or not, and run with Deion Lewis. So
they love the whole Shanahan style. It's all speed receivers, and so they want guys. The 49ers, they had 4 guys that could run a 4.340. So if you're a Jets fan and you see running backs with a 4.340, keep an eye on them.
Keep an eye on them. All right, so I'm gonna play as we end the show. I'm gonna play the video one more time. If you're just joining us, this guy right here, Brian, who does this stuff. I mean, he loves it, and he does a very good job. Well prepared, but he got the pick right. So I wanted to share that before we end because I know we showed it really, really quick. But bottom of my heart, man, thanks again for giving up the time for being on Titan Upload. And I'm gonna put his stuff on here one more time. Well, that's the slides, my bad. But it is up in the upper left. But there it is. So definitely go follow this guy. Go subscribe to him. Hit the bell for notifications. He's coming out with stuff about the draft consistently. And thank you guys for being here. Sorry there wasn't a whole lot of interaction because we definitely wanted to hear what Brian had to say. But we'll be back on Sunday night for Titan Upload Live. We'll go more into the Titans and what they're doing. Who knows? Maybe we'll even mention who this Georgia pass rusher is and see if we get a little bit of a redemption from Brian. So, again, thank you, Brian, for everything. And you guys take care. Don't forget to tighten up that like button before you're on your way out, or like the like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, we would love to have you on the channel. But you guys were awesome. We'll see you soon. Take care. Oh, and stay safe, by the way, with the snow and stuff, okay? Just enjoy it, right? Because it only snows, for some of you, like once every 5, 6, 10 years. So just think of it on that side. All right, guys. Take care. See you later. Brian, let me play a sound. This is a big deal for us. We'll play the DJ sound. We're ready. Titans were finally here. It only took an hour and 40 minutes. Who are the Titans picking, Brian?
I feel like I'm going to announce this pick and I'm going to duck because people were throwing stuff. I have them taking Georgia offensive tackle Isaiah Wilson.
Oh.
Here's my thought process. And here's the thing. I'm looking at this draft, and Trayvon Diggs is still available. And I like Trayvon Diggs.
I'm Titan Upload, and you're watching Fan to Fan Network, the voice that fans deserve.